Awesome. Welcome everyone to the Battery Saloon.
Do I need to talk here actually? Okay, awesome. We know how to climb a week. Yay! Alright, thank you Hitesh. Hitesh has been a great partner, very visionary with perspective. I hope every single one of you can find a partner like that. Okay, who is here? Startup founder. Who is here an investor? Come on, I saw your names. Okay, you're hiding. Okay, who is here from corporate? That's okay, you can raise your hand. All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Synapse and Anne, for hosting this. This beautiful space, we really appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. I know it was a trip, either you're in the city or East Bay or wherever you are. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here in the panel. There was a game going on. What was that? But Jonathan, you said going on?
There is a Warriors game going on. I'll try to shout out the scores as people are making their pitches. I'm just kidding.
So I want you to know there has been a big sacrifice to be here in this panel. So yeah, there has been a great value. Okay, I guess I've introduced enough. All of you pretty much know me. I'm too noisy. I'm going to go ahead and we'll let you know who are in the panel, and I'm pretty sure you already know, and then we'll give them a couple minutes to introduce themselves, their product, what they do, who they are, their company, and what they're so proud of. So here we have Erika, who's Laura, is her middle name. Erika Lauren, the CEO and founder of Electric Goddess. And then we have Jonathan Tan, the CEO and founder of Coreshell. And then Eli Leland, the CTO and co-founder of Voltaiq. And then we have Vivas Kumar, the CEO and founder of Mitra. Let's just start from you. Who are you?
I think who are you is the most entertaining question of all the human experience. Well, I'm Erika. It's great to be here. I haven't actually been in the city in San Francisco in many years, and it's actually really beautiful. So thank you for having me here.
Sometimes it's sunny.
I started working in technology. I've always been interested in how people and systems work, and also astrophysics. So I chose a university where I got access to the Chilean telescopes. I started working on the Dragon 1 cargo program with NASA back in 2013. And from there, I was building battery factories in LA, doing new product introduction, working in manufacturing. And that's where I met my co-founder, Luke. We've been in batteries since 2006, and we founded Electric Goddess in 2019. I would say we provide services as a partnership, and I would say that we are wild enough to say yes to answering your most challenging questions, and we test a lot of things that have never been tested before, and we really just appreciate pushing the envelope forward in the battery industry, whether that be through material science, cell tech, battery packs, and we have stuff all the way from bikes to satellites, so we've worked on a lot of different things.
Thank you. And by the way, you have probably noticed there's not a lot of women or identifying people in on this. There's this one part of me who wanted to practice DEI, not for a bit anymore. But the other part of me was like, this is the reality of our industry, and we're supposed to change it, not make it look different. So maybe every single one of us can think about how we can make the culture more identifying friendly. Thank you for being here. Jonathan.
Who am I? I think that's a harder question. I think it's a hard question. Erika, I think, did a better job of answering that. I was more prepared to talk about Coreshell, which is, I guess, most of my life these days. But who is Coreshell? That's also a hard question. But I'll try to explain a little bit. We started 8 years ago. We came from other industries, me and my co-founder, mostly in the thin film materials industries. So I came from polymer membranes. My co-founder came from thin film solar, electric from windows. And our goal was really to bring something to the battery industry that could really be scalable and cost effective. And that was kind of the thesis that we drew our box around. In 2017, when we first started, electric vehicles hadn't taken off yet. So people assumed if you were starting a battery company, you were going to work on iPhones. It's pretty funny how quickly things have changed, and I think it's obviously now apparent that batteries are the most critical technology, and I still think that there's a huge amount of technical innovation that still needs to happen in order for batteries to be cheap enough and good enough for the major energy transition. So our main goal is to make those batteries as cheap as possible, as scalable as possible, starting with the anode. So we're commercializing what I believe to be the only wholesale possible replacement for Chinese graphite built in the US or in Europe that has the unit economics and scale to be an actual replacement. So we're doing that now. We've got a pilot scale battery production facility. If folks want to come check it out, we're making full 16 amp hour automotive size cells now that have replaced 100% of the graphite with silicon. So that's who we are.
Awesome, thank you. By the way, speaking of, you guys can come check it out. We have a factory tour. Jonathan promised us sometime to their pilot line.
Not everyone I was.
Yeah, okay. Eli, you had a question?
Sure, who am I? I guess in the context of this, so I'm CTO and co-founder at Voltaiq. My name is Eli Leland, and in the context of this evening, pitch competition, I became an entrepreneur by process of elimination because I tried everything else and either didn't like it or wasn't good at it or both. Voltaiq is an enterprise software company for the battery ecosystem that is centered around data analytics, helping our customers learn as quickly as possible from all the data that's generated by the batteries to advance, scale, improve, and optimize whatever they're working on, whether it's early stage R&D, helping bring technologies to market faster, qualify suppliers faster, finalize battery designs faster, and then scale up, pilot scale, and ultimately gigafactory production. We work with customers, leading companies across the ecosystem, across all these different stages, across all kinds of different chemistries and applications and formats. And just like a little bit of the founding stories, I started my career, very early career in enterprise software, later got the energy bug and went and did a PhD in engineering with an energy focus, worked on a lot of different kinds of devices, and was ultimately working in a lab. I was leading a project developing capacitor technology. My eventual co-founder sitting in the next cubicle was leading another RPE project developing a battery technology. We developed some very basic in-house data analytics tools to help accelerate our work. And in doing so, just sort of recognized that that data is really the lifeblood of the battery ecosystem. Batteries are generating data all the time. The key to, again, improving, understanding, advancing, optimizing, and scaling your technology is really all about data analytics. And there just seemed to be this glaring white space of enterprise software for the battery sector to help consolidate all that data and make it easy to learn from. So we founded Voltaiq in 2012, and here we are today.
When we were hosting Eli's co-founder Paul in another event, and I called him Yoda because they have all the information about battery manufacturing. So how does it feel to be Yoda? You have all the rights to
It's not easy being green.
Right, yeah. But it's quite good, it's okay. Vivas, another question.
Well, thank you. So my background is I first came to Silicon Valley almost 10 years ago to join Tesla, which at the time was a constantly almost bankrupt EV company. And there was only two ways it could have gone, and luckily it went up and created the recipe for the revolution that we see in battery manufacturing in some ways. It's not the only company that did it, but I think that it was a huge catalyst to get large-scale private capital investing behind batteries in the Western world. And I've been a huge beneficiary of that experience because it taught me the original theses around which I built this company, Mitra. So I went to Stanford Business School, met my two co-founders through that experience, one of whom was Professor Will Chu from the Material Science School, and the other is a gentleman named Chiru, who was a former postdoc of his. And the three of us came up with a three-pronged thesis based on our observations in the battery industry. The first is the need for more speed in R&D acceleration. The second is the need for more iron-rich cathode active material. for US applications in automotive and energy storage. And the final was building manufacturing scale in the US to offset our overt geopolitical dependence on China. We kicked off the company about 4.5 years ago, raised an initial round of funding from Silicon Valley Venture Capital, raised a Series B from GM, led by GM. And then ultimately last year we were awarded a $100 million US DOE Bipartisan Infrastructure Law Program grant to build LFP and LFP manufacturing in Muskegon, Michigan. So that's our flagship project. The eventual long-term goal of this company is to prove the intersection of our three-pronged thesis with LFP in the USA, and then use that as a jumping-off point to go after multiple different decarbonization, material science problems at scale.
So, that's definitely very concrete. But speaking of that, since you won the DOE grant, there's a lot of keywords that we're hearing, like Trump tariffs. How did that change? So I'm assuming the DOE grant is still there. It's not threatened.
So here's a benefit of having Trump as president now, is we've seen this movie before. He was president once before. And what we learned from the first Trump presidency is there's a disconnect between the rhetoric and the action. The unfortunate part of it is the rhetoric causes a lot of financial markets uncertainty. So where we stand is we have a lot of confidence in our DOE grant, in that the DOE continues to engage with us and is actually actively asking us to submit invoices so that we can get paid out. I mean, they wouldn't be doing that if they wanted to cancel our grant or if it got Doge, right? I personally visited Doge. I've known Elon for like a decade, so I went and sat down with their general counsel and said, please don't cancel this grant. And to which they said, look, you're building US manufacturing for a product that's needed in a specialty chemicals industry where 100% of the capacity is in China, and you're doing it in a purple state. Like, if we could have come up with a project and not Doge, this is a project and not Doge. It's not just government capital that you need to go and build a complex manufacturing facility. You have to put together an entire diversified capital stack involving different players of equity capital, debt capital, project financing, and government. And the incentives for the forms of capital that are not just government capital is to clam up and shut down when there's uncertainty in the market. So the gyrations that you see in the stock market as a result of tariff policy, it seems like if Scott Bessent sneezes, all of a sudden the market loses 5%. That doesn't help private capital formation in this space. The best thing that we can do right now is to stay focused on delivering product to a customer to incite them to give us a clear demand signal at the scale that we need. Because while there's financial markets uncertainty, there's nothing to reinstate more certainty in the validity of your project, like a customer standing up with an offtake agreement and saying, we will buy 50,000 tons of LFP per year from you. That's the ultimate outcome that we're going for.
Awesome. Yeah, you actually brought us to the next question. That was very timely. What are my questions to all of you, whoever wants to start us up? What do you think are the biggest obstacles in the way of adopting batteries in electrification?
Well, the track record hasn't been great. Let's just be honest there. I think that the first wave of battery innovation didn't really think far enough in advance on. It was inherent value creation, and back to what Vivas was talking about. How do you actually get to full commercialization and think about what value are you creating once you get there, right? Not just the technical metrics that you think about when you first start engineering a product and think about things like energy density or things like cycle life that was important, but those sorts of things aren't what the end customer are purchasing. They're purchasing real value, right? They're purchasing unit economics, they're purchasing scale, they're purchasing security. They're purchasing something that eventually can hopefully get into a car and then get that car into the hands of people that drive them, right? I think the first wave of battery technology startups lost track of that and focused too much on the hype cycle of creating a battery that is 10x better than what is commercially put out there without thinking about the scale and the value that it would create later. I'm hoping that in this new economy, after a lot of that has come down, there's more companies thinking more practically about what is it that really needs to happen to drive adoption of electric vehicles and to make the industry mature without the need for government incentives, right? We have to think about mature, profitable industry that can drive on its own and stand up on its own two legs without having to get, I mean, it's great to get a DOE grant, but without having to need that support of tax incentives to make it profitable. That is really what the industry needs right now, and I think tackling that challenge is probably one of the hardest things that people have to do, right? And to think about that from a landscape of innovation, and to do that innovatively here in the United States, I think that's a big challenge.
And that's why we exist. Thanks for innovation. Anybody else wanted to ask?
Yeah, I would say that, one of the barriers is just time. Like, batteries continue to improve relentlessly to get, more performant and cheaper, all by a couple percent every year. Those couple percents add up. They move the goalpost back for a lot of other technologies that are, that have been 2 years away for the last 10 years or so. So I think part of it is just, eventually and soon, the unit economics become so compelling that it's not really going to be. I think those barriers will fall. I think that in my view, the ecosystem of OEMs probably might have thought about taking a slightly different approach instead of trying to build a whole bunch of mass market vehicles when they saw how successful Tesla was. There are certain fleet applications where the economics have penciled for a long time, and so it's puzzling to me why they didn't go harder after those sorts of fleet applications, or perhaps vehicles targeted at like small vehicles targeted for the urban elite or what have you, where they could build up some scale before trying to go to the mass market when they're running into opposition from people that just aren't used to this technology. So I think there might have been other paths. It might not be too late to find a faster path to scale that'll help accelerate those learning curves.
I think cost has been one of the biggest innovations in the past 5 years. I haven't necessarily seen a huge step change in batteries. Yes, improvements. Yes, it's getting better. Nothing that's like all those marketing that you get, and if you read the comments now, they're like, oh, I don't believe you, underneath any sort of battery headline now. But I think the biggest challenge really comes down to, I want to say the word education, what Battery Saloon is really doing, because there's this one where I have Lamborghini in my office, and they're telling me how much I hate EVs, right? They just absolutely cannot stand them. And they were just going on, and I couldn't even get a word in. And so I was like, you guys want to go to lunch? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, okay, great. Like, I was like, can you drive my car? And I drive a Tesla. And it was just silent, just dead silent in the car. And so I just feel like there's also that human aspect as well that we have to overcome. And the more that we share, the more realistic we are, the safer we are, the more badass essentially batteries are. I think they're amazing. I learn something new about batteries every day, which is why I encourage new people to even get into the industry as well, is that education. And so thank you for your work.
Yeah, thank you. So you work a lot on I think, safety and also recycling, right? You have another company.
I do, yeah. I was originally a board member and an advisor, and they asked me to be CEO, and I was kind of naive enough to say yes.
Well, I'm glad you did. So tell me about that. How much do you think safety and recyclability, or not, I'm inventing words here. Okay. But English is your fourth language. You shouldn't try to say difficult things. But anyways, you get what I'm trying to say. Like, how much do you think recycling challenges and safety is playing a role in adoption of batteries or not adopting batteries?
Thank you. I find safety a very difficult topic to actually speak about in the battery industry, even though I would say most people know that about the work that we do. And it's only because we get to see some of the worst things in the industry, right? Where something gets burned down, or somebody gets hurt, and those are things that you never want to see. And that's another one of the reasons why we're in battery design, to be like, I want my grandma to be able to like fall off this bike, oh, God forbid, or and like not have an issue, right? You know, somebody's kids sleeping over a garage, like that, those are the things that come to my mind because those are the things that I've seen. And innovations in battery safety have tenfold increased, really. There's so much material science now that, like, I am just amazed by cells that we're testing now, honestly. How that translates to recycling. Recycling is a giant beast, Wild West. No one has any idea what's going on, no matter what anyone wants to tell you, but I would say that there's a lot of cool innovation going on. It's gonna come down to, in the US, I think we're moving towards a more collaborative industry. That's my bias towards it, because there's so many different people in the value chain that touch the same things. And I think that's how we're going to win rather than compete, especially when talking about battery recycling, because there's like, all right, you gotta pick it up, you gotta dismantle it, you gotta like take it to a discharger, a shredder, you gotta like handle chemicals, you get to like maybe a low grade black mass, then you get a high grade black mass, and then it just maybe 20 different companies could even touch battery recycling. So to be profitable, to be efficient, it really is gonna take some collaboration.
Someone actually, Fred, where are you, Fred? Fred is gonna be talking about battery recycling. There you go. Yep, okay. So I'm going to come back to you. So how much, when you are designing your anode material, CAD material, how much are you thinking about circular economy? How much are you thinking about, okay, are these batteries going to be recyclable? No. How much of that is in your process, part of your innovation?
Yeah, I think there definitely is a challenge, and I'd be curious to hear Vivas' take on this. For our perspective, we're trying to inherently build a battery with lower cost materials. And the problem with that is that the lower cost it is, the harder it is to justify the unit economics of the recycling that comes back to it. So it's kind of challenging in that way. I do believe that recycling is critical for the industry. We have to get to a point where all batteries are recycled. I do believe that if you work through the system and create batteries that last longer, that have some life, and all these other things, eventually you will get to the unit economics of making recycling a good industry to have. I don't think that it's a problem that we are able to holistically solve with just one answer. I agree with Erika, like it definitely needs a collaborative effort, and it needs multiple people working in different parts of the value chain to collaboratively put together. So it's a hard thing for us to really solve for in terms of like all the different multifaceted variables you have to solve for. But I hope that if it does become a material that everyone adopts, that there will be second use and there will be recycling applications that come from it.
The challenge with battery recycling as a business model is that the incentives from the cell maker are geared against battery cell recycling. Battery cell makers want their product to last as long as possible, and they want to reduce scrap waste in their facility as much as possible so that their operating cost goes down. So what does that mean for the recycler? The recycler input feedstock is also not growing at the rate that it needs to create the cost down opportunity for the recycling operating cost. And this is what has always been the catch-22 on recycling for me. I don't know what is the point at which you have economic viability at scale for recycling to produce materials that can compete with virgin materials. For us, in terms of our strategy, we are just procuring primary virgin materials ourselves right now. The recyclability of LFP is a topic that comes up in conversation with a direct correlation with the lithium price.
Yeah.
That's not a problem for us to solve because these are industry dynamics that go well beyond just the one company that is Mitra Chem. We are focused on making a really good cathode here in the USA and delivering that. If we can do even just that, that's an amazing success.
I'll just add that, and I'm not in the recycling space, but we talk to a lot of people about this stuff. Any battery being produced today, as said, it's going to go into most of them are either going to go into vehicles or on the grid. They're going to be in service something like 10 to 20 years. So who's to say? So if you're building up a recycling capability now, you're betting on what the composition of new battery technologies is going to be 1 to 2 decades from now. And if you think about how much batteries have advanced in the last decade, let alone 2 decades, that's a tall order. So I think it's challenging.
It's gotta have government policy and mandate for it to even be, because I agree, like, the unit economics just don't make sense to me right now. To be profitable is just gonna be a huge challenge, so it's gotta have the government part of it.
I'll even say too, 5 years ago when I started looking into battery recycling and started talking about secondary markets for lithiums, like ceramics and greases for like lithium that comes out of batteries, like there's opportunities to actually reuse these materials. Eventually, without having to do that economies of scale to get to that battery grade material. So I do think battery recycling, whether it actually gets turned into more batteries or not, you have to get the energy out of those cells, especially if it's stranded, and because if it's being charged and discharged a battery, somebody's probably using it. And so if it's not, then you have a different problem of like, all right, how do I get that energy out of that battery? And how do I get it to a safe space so things don't leach into the groundwater or into rivers? So to me, that's kind of our biggest problem in recycling right now is like cost effectively moving stuff and deactivating it, and then potentially giving it another use into potential second markets.
You guys, the startup founders, the entrepreneurs, you gotta solve that problem. We have done enough. Awesome. As much as I love this panel, we are literally running out of time for the panel. So I'm going to have you please, thank you so much, first of all, for your insights. I really appreciate it. I'm going to have you please sit in here because I love you have your necks and not have neck pains. And you're going to have your started spread because you're talking about recycling. Let's see that. So before that, I want to acknowledge the courage of every single person who was pitching today, because it's not easy to be open to feedback in front of others. It takes courage and confidence. So thank you so much. What else? Yes, the floor is yours. And then we're going to have people pitching. We have 8 people today. And then you're going to receive some beautiful feedback from the panel, but it's not about, oh, your pitch was good or bad. It's about, like, you can make it better this way or that way. So don't expect anyone getting roasted in here.
Hi everyone, I'm Fred Rostami. I'm the CEO and founder of Vivas. We're an advanced recovery technology startup based out of Kingston, Ontario, with a mission to make battery recycling more profitable, efficient, but sustainable at the same time. So diving into the problem quickly. So battery recycling, so black mass, that's the crushed and shredded batteries, are currently doubling in the next 5 years. And the challenges are complex feedstock. So the battery composition comes with 7 to 8 different elements. The variability of the black mass is really all over the map. So there's no consistency what type of black mass is being produced. Fluorine penalties with aluminum impurities and on certain payables are really causing challenges and bottlenecks. And 90% of the black mass is being shipped overseas from North America, South America, and Europe. So what we would need to do is really reduce the volume in the black mass so it can easily be shipped, but also remove the undesirable materials such as fluorine and aluminum along the way. And this is where we come in, really a simple pre-treatment process. So zooming in on the supply chain a little bit more and looking at where Greenlit plugs in a value chain, and looking at the supply chain without Greenlit, what we're trying to do is really uplift the black mass upstream and then reduce CapEx and OpEx downstream while increasing yield on nickel cobalt. Currently, black mass is being sent to smelters up in Canada or somewhere else, and hydromet plants that are popping up all around North America. They're losing lithium and aluminum, fluorine is undesired, and graphite is burned in smelters, but also contaminated in hydromet processes. We want to recover the lithium and graphite up front, remove the fluorine and aluminum as early as possible, and then push down clean feedstock, high concentrate nickel cobalt to the downstream. We're doing so with a one-step continuous process. This is a thermal process. We're using thermal and water technology. The throughput in a system like this is 5 to 10 tons per hour. We're targeting 1,000 kilowatt hour of electricity per ton with 0.3 cubic meters of water. OpEx is $300 with CapEx around 1,300. So very, very efficient, a fraction of the cost of hydromet and smelting. And the goal is really not to compete with these downstream processes, rather acting as a complementary solution for both upstream and downstream by uplifting the value of the black mass early. We're looking at a $66 billion market by 2030. We want to target $228 million by year 7, and we're doing so with 4 of these units deployed. We have already gained some traction. We have a binding contract of $53 million. This is for intake of the black mass and also distributing the material. We have a $34 million contract for nickel cobalt offtake, but also 8 LOIs. So a lot of good traction, and we're trying to get this into a commercial phase. Oops. The time is up. All right. The time is up.
I guess first I'll say, like, kudos to you for stepping up right after we talked about it all the time.
Yeah, that's why my heart was beating.
That couldn't have been easy, and you did a great job.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
The one thing I would actually just kind of like stepping back. First of all, your traction is incredibly impressive. Showing off that amount of traction and the amount of corporate you've signed, especially in the early stages, is incredible. I would probably try to address like the elephant in the room that we just talked about on the panel, right? Like, what are the challenges for recycling right now? Especially in this economy, in this environment, I think there's going to be a lot more people concerned about recycling and the economic value of it. I think you have a story to tell about how you can help close that gap, right? Which I think everyone agrees that it's going to have struggles on the unit economics. Show that as a challenge, and then show how you guys are fixing that. That's my feedback.
I like that. Yeah.
I want to echo the commercial traction is very good, so kudos for doing that. We should cost position and how you get sustainable cost downs, because black mass, like we've seen black mass behave like a commodity in some senses, where prices can just go up and down, and your operating cost needs to be able to withstand the ups and downs of black mass pricing. That sensitivity is something that I would dig into if I were looking at this as an investment opportunity. Good luck.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
People love to talk about dollar per pound in recycling, and you know mining, so they probably talk about it that way as well. Kind of echoing exactly off of what they said, I would, from an investor standpoint, just understanding like where that cost reduction is going to be the big elephant in the room. Right?
Yeah.
Awesome, great team too.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's not only me.
No great insight here, but just sort of building on what some of the other folks have said.
Yeah.
Playing up the other industries that could offtake your material, because they're valuable materials.
Absolutely.
They could go anywhere, independent of what happens to the battery market.
Definitely. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. You have the, would you want to go all the way to the side?
I don't get a 3, 2, 1 go.
Sorry. Oh, yeah.
You gonna do this one? Let's go.
No, you didn't introduce yourself. You're on your own.
Okay, we can do that. Okay, got it. This nice. Put past this because I don't like pictures of me. We'll talk about that later. I want to get to the problem. Batteries get out of balance. If you aren't doing something to balance it, every battery will get out of balance eventually. And it's like the battery is shrinking at an accelerating rate and dies a premature death. And there are existing balancing technologies. Nobody is really happy with them. Passive balancing is limited to a trickle current, not very effective. Active balancing technology suffers from the kind of problems I listed up there. Talk about more of this in Q&A. Out of balance batteries do industry-wide cost billions of dollars per year in lost battery capacity. Everybody says they have breakthrough technology. My first bullet point is kind of underwhelming. We overcome the shortcomings of existing technology. The next bullet point, let me get this really clear. We have two technologies. Either one of them will completely eliminate out-of-balance conditions in any battery, regardless of cell chemistry, regardless of size of battery, regardless of age of battery, regardless of condition of cells. You will not have an out-of-balance battery ever again. And I don't think there's any other commercially available balancing technology that can make that claim. And there's a lot more to our technology than what I can give in 3 minutes, but one of our added bonuses is we can give you real-time data on cell impedance, and that's not just the cherry on top. That's actually pretty valuable data. We can elaborate on that in Q&A as well. The only thing I want to add to the team is Erika and I don't like to talk about our experience because it makes us feel old. We're not looking for funding at this point. What we're really interested is introductions to companies who might be interested in using our technology. And this is the slide I wanted to be sure I had time for. Balancing Performance Index is a way to do head-to-head comparisons of balancing technologies and get a pretty good idea of how they compete. We've got passive, because it has zero efficiency, it rates 0 in the BPI. The products from Analog Devices and TI, they're the two best balancing technology we've found. True balancing and positive balancing are our two technologies. The point I'm trying to drive home with this slide is this is not an incremental or marginal improvement in technology, but it's really a big breakthrough in technology. There's the contact info. Did I do it in under 3 minutes?
You have 45 more seconds.
Is there enough time to win the margarita? No. Just open it up for questions. I have a lot more I can talk about. What do you want to hear?
I can use that time to say something. So I would really love for the panel to offer something to our pitchers. Could be mentorship, could be connections, introduction, like whatever you feel like that would be really appreciated. And also the audience. All of you are intelligent, super connected people. If you have anything to offer, that would be really appreciated.
Well, I have a demo back there if you want to see it later.
Can you go over a little bit of the technology, like on how you're doing this?
Yeah, we have two technologies. True balancing is our original technology. And we're using switch mode buck regulators configured as voltage dividers, and they're interleaved down the chain of cells. And it's an extremely efficient way of moving energy from cell to cell with negligible losses at very high currents and at very low cost. We can support balancing currents of up to 50 amps. Compare that to passive balancing where you're limited to about 150 milliamps. So we can size it to any balancing current you want. It's very, very efficient, very high balancing currents at very low cost. And then our second technology, positive balancing, I'm writing the patent application for it now, so there's limited detail that I can tell you about it. But what I can tell you is UC San Diego just did independent testing of our technology on a bunch of used Tesla battery modules. They came out of Teslas, were being driven up until they got totaled or impounded or whatever. They weren't pulled out because the batteries were bad. And of the 8 modules we started with, 5 were in such bad shape that the Tesla DMS flagged it as you need to get a battery replacement. Our technology, our positive balancing, resurrected all 5 of those Tesla modules and brought them back into working condition.
If I were considering investing or partnering, I'd want to know things like what's the cost penalty relative to $50 kilowatt hour cell, $100 kilowatt hour pack. How big are they? What's the incremental load like? And how does that compare to what sort of efficiency or lifetime gains you get from the battery?
Yeah. Cost is very variable for this. It depends on the cell chemistry, the size of the battery, how much balancing current you want. The way we phrase cost is that with true balancing, and also the bigger the battery gets, the lower our cost is as a proportion of the battery. So for an EV battery, true balancing might add 3 or 4% to the cost of the pack. Positive balancing might add 1 to 1.5%. And a big utility scale grid connected battery, we add a fraction of 1% to the cost, but the performance improvements far outweigh the added cost. And in terms of load on the battery, like how much should we put load on it, is negligible. We do use the battery power to run our electronics, and we're talking, milliamps of current. And, on a grid-connected battery, that's like you've got Niagara Falls and you're taking drips out with an hydraulic.
I would just suggest boiling that down to, a fraction of a percent to 3% of the total cost of the battery when you're in this kind of forum, in the pitch kind of forum. Understanding that it's more complex and it depends on a whole bunch of things,
Yeah.
the people that you're going to be pitching to are just going to want a number of it's 0.2% to 3% of the battery cost, and the performance improvement is 20 to 50% or what have you. I think the battery balancing performance index is, at least I've never heard of it. I'm sure it's real and
Yeah, I have
those
a
numbers are
slide in
impressive,
the
but
background of
yeah,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
Just putting it into the language that your audience is going to understand.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Clint. It's nice to meet you in person
Yeah.
today. If a client came to me and said, I would like to investigate this and see if we wanted to implement it into our batteries, there are more questions I would have just as far as the trade-offs of it. So when you have cells that are draining faster than other cells within a string, there's usually a reason, right? And usually it's me and Luke riding horses trying to figure out why. And I would really want to see what are those trade-offs that are being made to provide me more comfort to even implementing this into a system. Does that make sense?
Yeah, everything has trade-offs. A macro level, I would say the trade-offs you have to make with our technology to balance your battery are far smaller trade-offs than any other balancing technology we've seen. And then the specific trade-offs you're thinking of, or you're looking at,
Gas production.
what?
Making gas when you're artificially forcing current into a cell that has been draining faster than the others, in my experience, many cells would produce more gas. Oh, and so is that going to be a problem, or is it a negligible amount? Those are the kinds of trade-offs that come to my head from a safety perspective.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah. Yeah, that's something that, anytime we implement this, we designed it with it being OEM equipment in mind, and it would require work with the battery manufacturer, the cell manufacturer, on what are the characteristics of the cells in this battery that we're designing it for. We would collaborate with their engineers on optimizing our performance parameters to work ideally with those cells. And actually what you touched on is you hit the problem in the Tesla modules. You nailed it. There are Model S modules. They have a few thousand little cylindrical cells, and they're all strung like 70 odd in parallel, and then they string them up in series. And the bad modules, in the middle of those modules, there was one cylindrical cell with a high self-discharge rate, and it was pulling the whole parallel string down. And that is worst case for passive balancing because it's always draining. And that means passive balancing, I'm done.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's next?
Good.
There's a bar out there.
That's a terrible picture of me. I love this. I like being the dumbest person in the room, and I absolutely am the dumbest person in this room. So this is, I'm enjoying this. I'm Ben. I'm one of the co-founders of Elastic, and we have nothing to do with battery technology or construction. We help behind-the-meter assets, including batteries, participate in the grid a whole lot better and a whole lot easier for the companies that build their businesses around that. So it's a massive opportunity, $200 billion to essentially rework the grid from the edge inwards. And a ton of companies are building business models around this. The problem is it is really hard to do a whole lot of this. A lot of these companies that are getting into this market are primarily private equity companies, or they're marketing companies, or they have business model expertise. They don't have this kind of engineering, they have an engineering team at all. And so we turn that into a little green box. That's the energy battery. This plugs into any inverter on the market and gives you full UL 1741 SB grid compliant interactivity for that battery. These inverters can already do this at the OEMs are not incentivized to really build that control aspect into it so that the operators could do this really, really well. We turn this into something that is literally plug and play. You plug it in and you walk away. All of a sudden, this asset can now participate in your giant behind-the-meter fleet, whether you're a company like Base Power or you're a company that is, you might be associated with the utility. There are many, many types of businesses that are built on this kind of grid interactivity. We help retailers, asset owners, and installers unlock up to 20% more, when I say asset performance, I mean financial performance. These things, this is not about, marginal increases in efficiency. This is about your business model makes a whole lot more money. And this is, at the end of the day, it's what everybody wants. We've got a long wait list from all of these companies. I'm happy to tell you how we triage all of these. We have a pretty awesome team. We're still relatively small. We are a pre-seed stage company. And I'm not going to tell you too much about the rate because that is out of date already. But basically, we're building up to the, someone in here said that the Shopify is something. I had asked them about that. At the end of the day, we're building up to the Shopify for distributed energy, and I would love to answer your questions.
What kind of lift is required on the software side to ensure that universal interoperability? Are there, in terms of like different standards you need to integrate to and that are constantly evolving, you need to keep updating?
For anybody else, it would be a huge lift. That's part of the reason why this is really, really hard for most people to do. My co-founder and I have spent a decade building IoT devices, and with just a sprinkling of agentic AI, we're able to take that and turn it into something where we don't have to build one-to-one OEM integrations with every device. It is a whole lot more smooth than that.
One more philosophical question. So what are you building towards? Because this seems like if you can get to a couple of product milestones in source and validation, this is a prime acquisition target for somebody who wants to build a broader ecosystem.
Yeah, looking in this space, a lot of companies in asset performance optimization and like DER connectivity, they get snapped up at sea, and they just totally get bought out.
That's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. Yeah, we're not necessarily opposed to it, but coming back to the end here, this idea of the Shopify for energy. If you were to buy me today, I'm a connectivity dongle, and I help businesses. Yep, there's a lot of value in that. When we're talking about the Shopify for energy, the regulatory environment and the incentive environment around grid participation are enough now that it's attracting a whole bunch of new entrants into essentially building neo utilities and building a new way to sell energy services to consumers. In the same way that we had this Shopify moment for doing business on the internet, we believe that we're right there at that precipice for energy businesses. And that's why, while this is something small today, we believe we could build up into something that big.
I gotta say, I feel, I mean, you stepped up and said that you feel like this room is really intelligent. I feel not educated enough to like give you a lot of feedback on this specifically. I think Eli probably has the best feedback because he runs an actual software company. The only thing that I was thinking about is kind of like what Eli talked about, which is, I think that's going to be the main question is like, what is the lift to be able to put this in and make it operable universally? I think that you probably know this, like you have to demonstrate that to get people really hooked on believing that this is a universally solvable problem rather than a sort of niche, bespoke type of issue. I think the customers prove that out if you can get the customers like really confident and signed on, obviously. But if there's a way for you to kind of demonstrate that and just kind of, I think, tackle the problem head on or be upfront about it rather than having the question come out and have to defend your position. I don't know if there's a way to do that. I would just say that that's probably going to be.
At least for the battery industry, one of the things that we're working on the next little bit is just a video series of 20-second long videos of plug it into end-phase solar.
That's great. Yeah.
And it just goes.
Yeah, like even just the psychological aspect of doing that, I think makes a big
huge.
Right?
Yeah.
Like just showing that that's something that you thought about and you have proof points that show that it's actually working.
Yeah. Budgeting along those lines.
Maybe I missed it. Can you say again, like, what exactly are you selling to whom and how much do they pay for it? And like,
I didn't say.
business model, unit economics, like,
So that's what we sell. That is the energy better.
Okay.
That costs $100, and we attach a $10 per site per month SaaS fee to that. And we sell this. We can sell this to a lot of people, but the pointiest end of the sphere is the distributed asset management companies and the OEMs that want to sell to those companies. Specifically for behind the meter assets, we don't touch this
and
yet.
so how many of those would a typical customer buy? One?
Thousands.
Yeah, I think the videos would also give a better sense for the actual product itself too. Because I think you showed these photos, and your slides are beautifully designed.
Thank you.
But they're, sorry, I didn't mean to say, but the kind of to what Eli's point is that, and what we're talking about, they don't specifically show the product in a way that's tangible.
Normally my pitch involves me pulling the real thing out of my pocket, but I sold it just before I came here.
You should have led with that. It's like, I have so much problem not selling my product that I couldn't even demo it today. But overall, I think it's a great pitch.
My demo literally flew out of my pocket on my way here.
It's absolutely, yeah. Thank you guys.
Anyone in the audience?
Didn't exist 30 minutes ago, now it does.
That's the best marketing strategy. Seriously, I love it. Anyone in the audience has any question? We have 58 seconds left.
What's the warranty?
Great question. Don't know yet. We have yet to figure out how they fail and when they'll fail, but most of our customers are deploying these things for 10 or 15 years, and because they're paying a SaaS fee for that entire time, if this device, which normally has a $30 COGS, fails in that time, you're still paying me for another 10 years. I will just replace it.
Do you have actual customers giving you recurring revenue contracts already?
Not yet. Yeah, we're selling the hardware, but people have yet to sign up for the ongoing contract part.
Right, so like if you're going into a utility and they're doing on-bill financing for behind-the-meter battery,
Yep.
and you're charging these people this money and then you're charging them $10 a month, yeah, who said they're going to pay you that money, plus pay the customers, the on-bill financing, plus
And is that
pay
Michael?
money for the customer?
Sorry,
Okay.
that's a
I will come back and tell you. I'm headed off to another event right after this, so if you want to ask more questions, it's right there.
Genius.
Thanks, Ben.
Benjamin. You have two Benjamins today.
So I am also Ben. So my name is also Ben. I'm the founder and CTO at PowerNet Energy, and I'm going to tell you about how my company is making the energy density of sodium-ion batteries competitive with some lithium-ion chemistries. So I don't need to tell anybody here why we should care about batteries, and I think everybody knows what the problems with high energy density chemistries such as lithium-ion is. Some of these, such as geopolitical supply risk, have increased a lot recently. And then we're still dealing with, in some cases, resource scarcity, poor performance at low temperatures, fire risk, and they're just too expensive still to deploy at the scale we need for full decarbonization. So a lot of these problems could be solved with sodium-ion batteries, but they're just too low energy density. So this is what we're working on. We are making an added active material. It is based on red phosphorus, which has an extremely high charge storage capacity. But the problems we're solving are red phosphorus is a lot electronic insulator in nature. And it's also extremely short cycle life if you just use it straight as red phosphorus. So we're doing this by just making a composite material with carbons, with some metal dopants, and with a coating, organic coating that you can think of sort of like an artificial SEI. And this is already giving us materials that are nearly 3 times the charge storage capacity per carbon. We're starting from a decent starting place, but not quite good enough yet, about 85% initial coulombic efficiency. But we've seen quick improvements with this with our coating technology. And so also right now we're at about 1/2 the cost on an amp hour basis of hard carbon. And we project if we can get to our full expected energy density that we will be at about 1/10 the cost of hard carbon. So what this enables would be sodium-ion batteries that have a higher gravimetric energy density than the sodium-ion today. Sodium-ion projected right now to 2030. LFP today and LFP projected to 2030, although some people say it might be higher than 205. We also beat all of these technologies on our volumetric energy density, and our cost, we expect to be about half of what LFP is expected to be in 2030. This is without some of the government subsidies that China is giving to CATL right now, though, because they've said that they're even cheaper than this already, but we think that's with subsidies. So sodium-ion batteries are expected to grow. Okay, sodium-ion is expected to grow rapidly. Some forecasts up to 1,000 gigawatt hours per year in 2030. Even at our reduced cost of manufacturing, that's still a $30 billion market cap. And we don't want to be cell manufacturers. We would sit down here at the higher margin end of component supplier, and we see some potential to move up the supply chain actually into the refining, because no one is actually, we produce a lot of phosphate in the US, but no one in the US, as far as I know, is reducing it to red phosphorus anymore. That's all done overseas. So this is the team. I won't say a lot about us. I have a PhD in chemistry and have been in the battery industry 13 years now. Giselle has a finance and sales background and was lead for Asia Pacific sales at Panelists for a while. We have some good advisors. And we're looking for funding and partnerships also. I am out of time, so I can get more into the details of exactly what this money would get us.
I think the rest of the panel is going to have awesome questions, but I wanted to ask, what have you done so far with the company, like coin cells, single layers?
Yeah, so where we are right now is coin cells, and so part of this here, we're at just like up to 3 milliamp hour coin cells, so very small, single layer. We have produced this material, we're making full cells, recycling them. You know, we want to get up to amp hour cells, and actually these targets are pretty moderate cycling life. We're not at great cycling life right now, but that is improving. Like next week we'll have higher numbers than we have now, but this is the big issue still is we need to improve this.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question. I mean, in general feedback, I think I agree with the premise of what you guys are doing, which is that sodium ion, I think right now is facing a lot of competition with LFP, which I think you're exactly right to point out. And in my opinion, I don't think the unit economics have been proven out, and it's because the energy density is so low. So you can have cheap materials, but because of the energy density, you can't get the unit economics out of like the battery scale. So I think the premise I believe in. I think the biggest question is how hard is it going to be to make this actually work, right? And how much of a technical gap do you still have in order to actually make this a functioning product? And I think you kind of know this, but like, you know, just doing the initial coulombic efficiency doesn't tell me how far away you are in terms of like solving these cycle life problems.
Yeah, sure.
You can't have like a, you know, if you're targeting even automotive applications, you know, it's like you have to get 1,000 cycles, you're targeting grid, you have to get like even way more than that. Even just talking about knowing that challenge and knowing what you're going to do to like solve that challenge is probably going to be beneficial, because this is kind of one of those things where it's like it's binary in my opinion. If it works, it's awesome. I have to believe that it works, and I got to be firm believers that not only the technology works, but like you guys are the right people that are going to make it work. Right? So that I think that's kind of like what I would take away.
Oh, thanks. What is the phosphate product you produce today as waste?
Sorry, what was that?
What is the phosphate product you make as waste?
Oh, no, we don't have any phosphate waste. We're starting from red phosphorus. And so it is cycling between phosphorus and sodium phosphide.
Okay.
So right now, to get red phosphorus, you have to get material that is, even material that is reduced, that is mined in the US, is mostly shipped to China and then back. So when I was talking about going upstream, there's maybe some potential to rebuild, we used to do it here, rebuild that reduction capability for both our uses, but also for value-added phosphorus-based chemistry. So yeah, up till the mid-90s, we did a lot of that in the US and stuff. So, the waste would be, if we went into recycling later, which we haven't actually thought about that much, we would have a reduced phosphorus product, and hopefully we could extract it as a reduced phosphorus product, because it'd be a lot more valuable that way. Phosphate itself is not all that valuable, right?
Okay. I really like the concept of integrating into the supply chain, because what it does is it secures your cost position for the product where you want to make. The product where you think that you have the largest TAM. My only caution would be do one thing at a time well.
My questions would be pretty similar to Jonathan's, just sort of like how many little technological miracles need to happen in order to get to the cycle life and economic efficiency that
I actually, with the rate we've had progress, I don't actually think it's a miracle that we need, fortunately. 6 months ago, I would have told you that we need a miracle, actually. But we are losing, 1% to 2% every cycle right now. So it's not a very long cycle life. But that is the kind of thing that just with a little bit of change of additives in the cells, we've seen that go up, and then also with coating. So we're at the point now that I think it is just like a parallel effort to try lots of different coatings and battery additives, because we're starting up there at a high enough, and we get over 99% clone efficiency within a few cycles. So we are getting up there quickly. It's like around 85 all the time. So I think it is actually that we're at the point where just a parallel investigation of some like fairly obvious things gets us there.
Last thing, because I think we're out of time. Show somebody else that believes that story.
Yeah.
That's not you, right? Show a customer that believes that, and that will validate that a lot more.
Okay. Yeah, we do have a couple potential customers we're talking to, so I don't have permission yet to name them, but we'll definitely ask for that.
Like, show some way to prove that they believe that you guys have not a miracle but left to solve, right? Someone that has a lot of technical expertise says believe in you guys.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Also, feel free to turn around and look at that screen behind me.
Awesome. So, this might not seem like it's about batteries at first, but I promise it is. My name is Ryan Goethals. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Aghniaey, and we are working to eliminate diesel fuel by using solid sheet metal zinc as an alternative. You can probably hear me now. So we're replacing diesel fuel with sheet metal zinc. So it sounds like everyone in this room probably knows that burning diesel contributes greatly to global warming. What most people don't appreciate is that there's also particulate matter involved. So that actually causes respiratory illness, leading to a lot of premature death across the globe, over $1 trillion in health damages. So this is a really urgent problem to solve. And while batteries can help, current lithium-ion solutions, as well as hydrogen fuel derivatives, simply are not cheap enough to match diesel, and they're honestly not safe enough for some of these applications. So what we're doing at Aghniaey is we have created a practical replacement for diesel using our metal air generator. We can deliver energy to customers cheaper than what they're currently paying for diesel, safer with no risk of battery fire due to our aqueous chemistry, and we can match the operational profile of generators due to our refuelable and long-duration cells. So how this actually works, we use metal air battery chemistry. Been around for a long time, specifically zinc air. What we've changed is the electrolyte. Instead of a liquid electrolyte, you use a hydrogen electrolyte, which allows it to have a physical form. So we can bring the, it is not going to work, I have a demo. We can bring the metal in contact with the rest of the cell, providing clean energy on demand. Once you've used all the energy in that piece of metal, you simply swap it for a new one, back at 100% capacity. When you automate that process, you've now created a generator. So what we do for our customers is we sell them this generator hardware. We can actually price match diesel on the hardware. We sell them in a fuel supply agreement, the metal fuel itself. We can also price match diesel there. And then we take the byproduct back. So we're oxidizing that metal. It's not going into atmosphere. It's much healthier for the user. We then reprocess it with electrochemistry and renewable electricity to make a low-cost, low-emissions fuel with 90% life cycle emissions reduction and 100% reduction of that toxic particulate matter. We have a highly technical team to achieve this goal. I personally have a background in the US Navy doing research and development for energy systems on ships, and we have 3 PhDs in varying battery technologies. So we're first going after a market in the utilities and construction space to make the air we breathe in cities cleaner. So this is going after portable power generators, solving that for people in urban environments, scaling all the way up to replace maritime diesel to power container ships across the world's oceans. We have traction in the utility space. We have partners specifically in the Philadelphia region. Happy to address more in the Q&A. We are fundraising, as always. What's up? Sure. So we're raising $750K. Essentially, this is a bridge to achieve near-term pilots before we raise the seed in the fall. We're always looking for customers, of course, and other commercial partners. Thanks.
I have a question. It seems like you guys have some customers who are interested in some pilot projects with you guys. What do you think that they're the most interested in from your product standpoint? Like, what is the biggest value that you hear back from them on what they're getting out of it?
They want to pay less for their energy. So really, from the onset, we've never been in the space of carbon credits or tax credits. We've always been angling for a cheaper product out the gate. And that's why we're focused on the same chemistry, because it has inherent cost advantages, where we can actually save them 1, 2, 3 cents a kilowatt hour and still make a decent margin.
I'm curious about some of the costs on your side for your business model, including reverse logistics of collecting the spent units, and then also reconditioning or recharging them. How does that impact your cost relative to what you're charging your customers?
Yeah, so we've done a breakdown of that. What it actually turns out is that about 80% of the delivered energy cost, is how we categorize it, comes from just the electricity we use in that reprocessing. So that's purely driven by the efficiency of that charge cycle, if you will. Right now, we're getting about 50 to 60% round-trip efficiency, so that's including losses on the discharge side. So to put that in comparison, if you put us next to hydrogen, they're sitting at about 20 to 30%. So right off the bat, we're saving a lot of energy and cost on that delivered energy price, which is why we compete things like green ammonia and e-methanol. But to answer your question directly, the remaining 20% is about 12% logistics, well, to the customer and back, and then the 8% is CapEx on the charge side, as well as operating expenses for employees and chemicals and so on.
This is more of a comment. The one risk that you're going to face is finding the right partner to underwrite your pilot risk when you get to subsequent, like your pre-growth round.
Yeah.
Who you choose as your customers now to do those pilots, the best case scenario for you is to find somebody who can actually write that check down the line as well. So even if you have to take more overhead burden and more of a painful customer on right now, with the probability of writing a check down the line to plug that pilot, you should do that.
Yeah, so very on point. We actually have Exelon on our cap table already. So we took a strategic way earlier than I think most startups would consider. They were our pre-seed lead. So they were actively a customer, investor, and future partner. So definitely hear you there.
I think the thing that I would be concerned about for you guys is you guys have an excellent technical team, but taking on strategics is much more than just the value they bring at the financing round and things like that. There's a lot of commercial risk associated with that, and there's also a lot of, I hear you on putting together a techno-economic model, but I would want to have it validated by someone who's commercialized and scaled things.
Yeah.
You don't have that on your team right now. I don't see that on your team.
You're right, yeah.
And I think you guys should get that person as quickly as possible who has commercial experience, especially if you've taken on somebody as a strategic in your pre-seed round. Someone who's thought through and been through those experiences and had strategic partnerships that have, I think somebody said, like, good advice comes from experience comes from bad advice or bad news, right? You want somebody who's gone through and seen what things can go wrong to advise you on what you should do and think ahead steps. Because that's a big concern that I would have for you guys is giving up too much or pigeonholing yourself down the road by trying to sign somebody on like too early on. Like kind of like what Vivas says, like if you sign on the wrong partner too early, it could really like limit your upside down the road, or you could come up with a lot of challenges that you're not necessarily thinking ahead of.
Okay, makes sense.
As someone who's never heard of anything like this, I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, it's amazing. It's clean, it's cheaper, everything. And I don't know if you'll be talking to people like me when you're pitching this. I would love to see, like, what are the choices that I'm making? Like, why would I choose you over, like, a diesel generator? Like, what are the risks of choosing this? Like, is there something I'm not thinking about, right? Like, really that, like, I would want to know more about the market in general, and that was something that I was missing from this.
Yeah, that makes sense. We typically compare ourselves to like alternative fuels, but you're 100% right. The adoption curve, I'd say the biggest risk, to answer your question, is that we would be the sole supplier of this new fuel. So it's like if your generator supplier also merged with an oil and gas company.
Right.
So it's a lot of, I guess, supply risk for a customer downstream. So I fully hear you there, and it's something I should probably address. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you so much. I think we just did. Okay, great. Hello everyone, I'm Guerrero. I'm the CTO of Flow Aluminum. We just did a rebrand, so you'll see us as Endless Energy moving forward, and I'll explain the logic behind that. But what we're trying to do is to build safer, less expensive batteries that also double up as a source of carbon capture. And so the team a few months back was focusing solely on flow aluminum batteries. So flow batteries are made out of aluminum as active material. But now we're actually expanding our portfolio beyond that, and so we're making batteries in a steel configuration as well, and hence the rebrand. But the fundamental aspect of the batteries, still revolve around aluminum. I'll talk about that shortly. But thanks to my peers for setting the stage on, why are we doing this? Why are we trying to explore alternatives? And, most of us are aware of some of these downsides that lithium-ion batteries face today. The most prominent one being safety risk, obviously, the thermal runaway, in addition to supply chain risk, high cost, performance degradation issues, and limited resilience when subject to extreme temperatures. And that's exactly what we're trying to address with these batteries that are made out of abundant materials such as aluminum. So think of the cheapest grade of aluminum out there, the 1000 series, like really soft aluminum, a pure grade of aluminum. That's what we construct our batteries out of. And we completely do away with any of these rare minerals and critical minerals that batteries are using today. In addition to that, I want to emphasize that these batteries are rechargeable, and that comes from our proprietary technology of using catalysts in combination with novel electrolyte formulations that allow batteries to do so. While there has been, some research efforts around aluminum batteries in the past, they haven't been made in a rechargeable configuration till date with the metrics that we've achieved. So with that, obviously there's a lot of motivation to explore this further in terms of cost. While I know hearing some of the panel's feedback, it's evident that there's a lot of work that needs to be done to make this, to make options such as this, like overall feasible in terms of economic viability, but just looking at the raw material cost breakdown, and we really have what it takes to make the battery out of low cost materials. And I talked about avoiding risks with lithium-ion batteries like thermal runaway. So that is a feature that's inherent to aluminum. Aluminum is fundamentally non-flammable, and so you would completely work around some of these issues. In addition to that, we've tested our batteries at extreme temperatures, all the way up to -40 Celsius, and the batteries perform very well. I'd like to highlight that the battery has a high round-trip efficiency, and all of these metrics stacked together. When you do a comparison with some of the other alternative technologies, you can see on the left pane that our battery, in theory, can outperform a lot of the other technologies that are being developed, while performing extremely well on cost as well. Okay, so to just wrap up really quickly here, saying that we have a world-class team to achieve these objectives. I spent a lot of time in hardware development, having worked at companies such as Tesla and Rivian, and I have our CEO Tom here as well. We're doing a lot of work in terms of fundraising. I'll just walk through this really quickly. We have a lot of traction and interest with military partners and commercial partners as well. We're looking to raise a 4 million seat round really soon that will allow us to build our pilot line and test how these batteries operate in reality and deliver products to customers as well. With that, I'd like to thank everyone for your attention and join me and Tom in building these next generation of batteries.
I'll start off. I think the concept of flow batteries, as you guys put it now, has been around for a little while. In your opinion, why has it been that no other flow batteries have really taken off?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and ultimately, it's a combination, in my opinion, of the weight associated oftentimes with flow batteries. You need to have tanks of media that you're going to be going through the systems, and that's one of the major motivations behind us, switching from a purely flow technology to a steel battery configuration that still uses the same building blocks. Only you have to work with a contained volume, let's say, of CO2 in our case. So there's, basically thinking about cost, thinking about weight, and then double that down with, the metrics that you get. So, all of this wouldn't make much sense if your energy density is not that great, your cycle life is not that great. So thinking about EVs, that's one of the industries that I come from. Carrying around these huge tanks would just not make sense. And so, putting that in perspective with some of these innovations that we've made around rechargeability allows us to tap into the benefits that you get from sort of low battery technology while doing away with all of this peripherals that are associated with using a battery like that for grid storage, for example.
Yeah, I would say my main feedback is that it's kind of associated with your first slide where you showed like a long list of things that you believe that your technology does better than the incumbent lithium ion. It's almost as if you try to claim too many things all at once, people have a hard time understanding really what is your key value proposition, right? Like what are you solving for that nobody else can solve for, right? And to me it comes down to like, I think I've heard similar types of pitches from other flow battery technology companies before, and that's why I asked the question, is that those companies, for one reason or next, and I'm actually not exactly sure why they haven't really been able to solve for them. Like you can go to the slide where you compare against other the flow batteries.
Sure.
Like there's other companies that are trying all these other things,
right?
But I don't really get a sense from this why you are better, and I'll say this, why customers think that you're better, right? And I think that's the thing that I would work on articulating simpler and more like cohesively, is like 1 or 2 things that your customers have come to you about that you know are going to be key selling points, right?
Yeah,
Not like 10 things, but like a couple of clear, crisp things that like you know you're better than.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback. I know I did skip through a lot of data really quickly, and I apologize. But we have a booth here. We're really happy to walk you through some of these items that are listed here. And I agree, for easy accessibility, for ease of understanding, it would probably be something like this. And looking at this, that's what I want the audience to take away home. And all of the other pieces basically fit into this. And can be secondary details.
One thing I would say is this is a list of attributes. It's not a list of values, right? Talk about it more from the perspective of what value does your product bring to your customer. Understanding the customer's perspective and you articulating that cleanly is, I think, you have a lot of great metrics here. You have a lot of things you're pointing to, but it's not coming through in a concise way about what your customers really value.
I want to back up Jonathan's point by giving some more sort of meta feedback, which is lithium-ion has become the standard platform for the largest and fastest growing segments because there's been decades of investment through them, right? So to take share away from lithium-ion, it has to be the value articulation. Also, I know it wasn't a slide that we skipped, but I caught flashes of it. I think there was a slide on you guys focusing on specific initial customer segments that are not just saying we're going to do automotive and grid scale storage. That's actually the best way that I've seen any technology that's not lithium-ion succeeds, is don't worry about the largest and fastest growing segments. Go for the segments that are going to pay for value and pay a higher margin up front to get that value.
Yeah, thanks. I will add, though, that this is my big 3 at the company. And so, yeah.
And you did great for week 3. You did great for week 3.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
So, Vivas, I know that you have to go. We have to get Vivas out of here.
I mean, it's 7 o'clock.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We have to go through 7. If you need to leave, please do so. Yeah, this is going to be our last one. We have one waitlisted picture, Tim here. So after we're done, we will see if you have energy for one more or no. So, Alex.
I'll forgo watching the words.
But Vivas, if you want to leave, you both play it.
First question, but I'd love to see Alex's imagination.
I regret that. So I know Ben said he was the dumbest person in the room, but I can confidently say that would be me, especially in this domain. And we are going to bring things way down from where they have been on the technical side of things, as we are more of a tangential, user of batteries rather than innovator in the battery space. So Voltaiq, we are we were focused on electrifying last mile fleets. And when I talk about last mile fleets, I'm talking about the fleets that are in service of the on-demand economy. The one where you want to order anything you want and get it to you in 30 minutes or less. That economy is $1.3 trillion. The last mile delivery fleet market is $160 billion and growing at a CAGR of 10% a year. The problem is, in many places outside of the US, they cannot tap into a latent supply of available drivers, private drivers in their vehicles, gig workers, to do these deliveries. And even though those are completely inept vehicles and models to deliver that, that's what we have in the US. Outside the US, you have to team up with a local fleet operator that is going to source the vehicles, run the fleets, manage the drivers, lease them the vehicles, etc. So there's a lot of these issues that plague this, but this on-demand economy is growing everywhere, ultra rapidly, and so the fleet operators are a critical piece of it, and we are the solution to that. Our solution is sort of the Shopify for fleets. I was the other guy that said Shopify. And what I mean by that is that we have, first and foremost, our platform, which is world-class sort of fleet management, maintenance, driver management. We have a driver app, everything you need, full stack software to run a fleet. The second part of it is a marketplace where we have already invested time and energy and money to integrate a single battery, which is made by Ampace, and its infrastructure, the battery swapping stations, into a variety of different vehicles from different OEMs. So it's very unique. One battery that works with different vehicles from different OEMs, not a walled garden like Guerrero. So our customers have the choice to buy those vehicles through us and have basically shortcut the time to market from 2 years, maybe $2 million in putting together a fleet and the software to run it to 60 days to be deployed. Our business model is SaaS. Every connected asset, battery station, vehicle gets SaaS fee, user pays SaaS fee, and we take margin on the hardware sales that come through our platform. There are many other revenue potentials down the road, but I won't touch on those now. We're already deployed in 6 countries. Our biggest customer is in South Africa, has grown to become the exclusive delivery provider for Uber Eats, and Uber has in fact approached them to ask them if they had a vehicle for ride hail. So that is what we're working on now as a secondary project. Last year we had just under $2 million in ARR, projecting $6 million this year, and our target is to reach 1 million vehicles or assets under management, which would give us about $100 million a year in SaaS revenue alone. Daniel Huang is our CEO. I got to mention that he's the one that pioneered the battery swapping as a service in China under a company called Motor, and he grew that to over 50 cities in China operating that as a business. So very thin margin, but he learned a lot and decided that this was something that the rest of the world needed to use to be able to electrify these last mile fleets and give them the best tools to be profitable, sustainable, and efficient. So again, product market fit has been achieved, 300% year-over-year growth. And we have a tremendous advantage that I would say our cornerstone is our team. But this vehicle that you see kind of highlighted in the background is our latest project that is being commissioned by Uber in a way. We have a signed term sheet for 380 vehicles to be deployed in South Africa later this year. And then if that goes well, it goes to 15,000 over the next 5 years. And for that reason, we are raising a convertible bridge to a Series A of $3 million to really accelerate that and make sure that we don't mess it up. So I'll leave you that.
So what was awesome about this one is every single slide, I thought of a question, and then the next slide answered the question. So, thank you. And one of the questions that I had was, why don't you just try to do something exclusively with Uber in one of these geographies, and then replicate that model with like Kareem in the Middle East, and then do that with Grab in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And do you need a hyper focus on geography, or is the technology deployable enough, and is policy and regulation the thing that will hold you back from being able to do that kind of rapid deployability across multiple geographies?
Yeah, no, good question. I feel like I need to clarify that Uber is not necessarily our direct customer. They are interfacing with our local customers. So in South Africa, our customer is a company called Alternative Energy. So we're behind the scenes. We are white labeling our product. Their brand is all over the place. But it's our software, it's everything, we are running everything, right? The reason, and we prefer it that way, so think of it as a franchise model, so we're not the boots on the ground operating this business and getting our feet dirty, and that's why we can expand, rather rapidly without having to grow our personnel. Uber, I think, is very interested in seeing how this does in South Africa because they see the potential in other developing markets and taking it across sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East, and even Europe. So yes, we are, we're also having conversations with Bolt, with Kareem, with Grab. We have a partner in India as well already. So yeah, each one of those major players that are the on-demand guys that struggle to find, oftentimes fleet operators, we need to grow relationships with them to say, hey, we will be your fleet fleet white label solution provider on the ground.
Thank you.
I think that clears up a lot for me because I was wondering, how you had such a big operation, we're operating all these fleets and you're only raising $3 million if you already have that big of an operation. So clarifying up front that you're sort of white label back end.
Correct.
And
we don't build any of the hardware, so we're not the
Yeah.
factory. Yeah. We spend money on integration, making certain vehicles from those OEMs fleet ready, and embedding our connectivity, IoT, a vehicle control unit. We run the BMS on the battery. We've worked with Ampace because, Daniel had great relationships with Ampace and actually helped them design the firmware on the 7428 battery that they launched.
I think that was going to be my question then. I guess maybe I'm not putting two and two together. Because my biggest concern was how much CapEx you'd have to spend to build all those vehicles. Being a vehicle manufacturer, obviously, is not an easy thing to do. And so, but you still need to have those vehicles custom made to fit the battery swapping, correct?
Yes, that's what we've invested in. There's a video at my little booth over there to show you the kind of four.
So somebody's contract manufacturing those, or like how is the customization of those vehicles being done to your specifications?
Sure, with the OEMs themselves. So the motorcycle manufacturer, if they weren't using the battery that is already kind of homologated to our system, we invest in having them, create a SKU of that vehicle for that. The four-door, four-wheel passenger vehicle is a unique one where we couldn't find anything that existed in the market that could be tweaked to suit the purpose of ride hail at low cost. So we are now actually taking control of the design function of that, creating the mechanical design, industrial design for that. The battery integration's already been done, but then it will be OEM. So that's why we need $3 million, is because we're taking a little bit more of a hands-on approach with this four-door car.
And then how do you then make a profit on the hardware then?
Yeah, so good question. First of all, our terms are our customers put in orders 50% at the time of the PO and 50% before it ships, and we have even better terms with our factories. So we don't necessarily have to put out any capital for the manufacture of the vehicles, and the margin we take is about 15 to 20% for shopping on our marketplace.
I guess my only comment is that in 2021, 2022, I probably saw a company like this come into my office like every other week telling me they were doing this. So it's pretty badass that you're actually making money doing this, because many of them don't exist now.
The key is to not be the operator of the battery swapping network, right? Because then you have to manage a ton of assets, hardware on the ground, and that's a really thankless job. Yeah. Thank you.
I know everyone's tired. Give us just 3 minutes. Tim is going to go through his slides, no questions asked, and then there's a bar waiting for you. Okay. 3 minutes. Yeah, 3 minutes. I know you're tired.
Can you tell me when I've got 30 seconds left?
Yes.
Okay. All right, can everybody hear me? Can I sing a song? Okay. All right, I am Tim Kalin with Rational Energy, and what we're doing is a utility-scale battery based on the iron flow chemistry, which was developed in the 1980s. It's an old chemistry. It's proven. Our claim to fame is that we are building the cheapest battery on the market. We intend to come in at about $50 a kilowatt hour. Everybody else is stuck at about 200. Let's see, let me tell you something you already know. Renewable energy is not profitable, which is ironic since solar cells at 20 cents a watt are by far the cheapest form of electricity generation. When you combine that with batteries, it's not profitable. You need subsidies. Well, guess what? Subsidies are going away. The existing industry is addicted to subsidies. That's built into their profit models. They cannot exist in the current environment as subsidies kind of go away, which they should go away. That price point that I just mentioned is designed to be profitable without subsidies. Let's see, we're looking for about $4 million to build our production model, our manufacturing model. We know how to make it cheap. We have the guy who invented the chemistry on our team from back in the 1980s. He's a little old now, but he's got a team. Let's see, what's next? Actually, I've got slides here. How about that? Well, let's.
The slides don't move by themselves.
Yes. All right, this is an important slide. So there was a research company that said that the total market for renewable storage is $247 billion. The middle figure says $9 trillion. And the figure on the left there, the 180 terawatt hours, that's from Elon Musk, which means this is a very, very large market. This is worldwide. The current industry cannot export because the developing market does not have subsidies. We can open up that market. We're in discussions right now with 3 separate projects. They all want cheap batteries. We have a letter of intent from a group in the Dominican Republic, another project in Dallas, Texas, another one in Nevada. We're very well connected. Selling this will not be a problem. My other company is a marketing company, so I've been building up those relationships. Let's see. Okay, this is going to be AI controlled. We're going to DC-DC couple to the solar farm that we're snuggled up next to. Okay, 30 seconds. I actually spoke with Matt from Mozilla Ventures last night, and he said, and one of his concerns was, well, you know, you're skeptical because, I mean, you're just trying to cheap out. It's like, okay, well, I made a career out of cheaping out. I spent my first part of my career with the Central Intelligence Agency. I deployed equipment, combinations of commercial and military and intelligence equipment around the world, 30 different countries, and not once did I have a mission fail because of equipment failure. I know how to do this. We've got a great team, perfect team. It's going to look like this. It's a shipping container. Put it into a nice security configuration there. Put it next to the solar farm, and that's us. I've got some of the best people in the world as part of my team, and I guess that's probably it. And somebody please ask me about my recycling club, because I just came up with it.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone. Thank you, the beautiful panel. We have everyone who pitched today. Thank you for being patient. Round of applause for our photographer, Alex. They're everywhere. I know it's so hard to process all the information that you receive, so thank you for audience for being here and still being here. Yeah, Bar is waiting for you.